Hey, leaders! In this episode of Leading Collaborative Response, we're diving into what it takes to lead and sustain collaborative practices at a divisional level. Our guest today brings decades of experience and a deep understanding of how collaborative leadership can transform not only schools, but an entire system. So let's get started. Are you a leader who is navigating the nuances of leading collaborative response in your school or district? Are you unsure of what collaborative response is? Are you looking to understand the critical role leadership plays when establishing and refining a collaborative response approach?
Collaborative response began as a grassroots approach to focus on the needs of students through a framework of collaboration. That approach has grown to a movement that is training leadership and education.
Through the Leading Collaborative Response podcast, Kurtis and I share our own experiences of leading collaborative response and lessons learned as we continue to learn and gain insight through the experiences of working alongside others. We also have the opportunity to engage in conversations with school and divisional leaders implementing the framework in their own organizations.
We know great leaders build great teams because that is what every child deserves. Subscribe to the Leading Collaborative Response podcast and join the thousands of schools seeing success for students through intentional and focused collaborative efforts. Before we jump into the episode, remember to join our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Every Saturday, we send out an exclusive video only to our mailing list, along with other templates, resources, videos, and more. We also share upcoming events and opportunities you may not hear about anywhere else. Go to jlinsiders.com to become part of the JL Insider community.
Welcome to another episode of Leading Collaborative Response. I'm Lorna Hewson, co-founder and lead learner of Jigsaw Learning.
And I'm Kurtis Hewson. Today we're joined by our friend and colleague Terri Peterson, Superintendent of Learning Services with Edmonton Catholic School Division, whose remarkable 35-year career in education includes over 20 years as a classroom teacher, experience as a school-based leader, and service as a director of inclusive education. Terri has been a passionate advocate for collaboration throughout her journey, and we're excited to explore how her leadership continues to shape and deepen the implementation of collaborative response across the entire division. So welcome, Terri. So great to have you here for this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's just a pleasure to be able to speak with you about something I know you're deeply committed to, but as am I and our division. So thank you for having me today.
Awesome. So we gave a little bit of the Post-it note version
Yes.
of your journey. Share with us, fill in any gaps from your journey from classroom teacher to the role that you hold now in Edmonton Catholic Schools.
Certainly. So as you stated, over 20 years in the classroom, I actually began my career as a special education teacher in a what we would call a segregated or congregated site.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the elementary level, I've had experience across all the grades in elementary, and then took a bit of a turn and decided I wanted to take a jaunt into junior high. And so that was a really great experience for me as well. And it just really rounded out my understanding of that learning continuum from elementary to junior high. After that, I became assistant principal with the division for 4 years, and then a principal for almost 5 at a bilingual school in Millwoods in Edmonton, Spanish bilingual school. And then I was fortunate to be able to sit as the director of inclusive education for 2 years with Edmonton Catholic Schools. And again, that just brought me back to my roots of special ed and inclusion and all of those good things. After that, I'm now in my second year as Superintendent of Learning Services in the department that I served as director. So within Learning Services, we have curriculum and assessment teams, we have inclusive teams, we have language supports, the whole gamut. It's a very large department and lots of exciting things happening here. So this collaborative response definitely fits very nicely into where I would like to see things going in the division, as well as specifically in this department.
It's so funny sometimes when you hear other people's stories about where you started and then where you get to, and it actually just is a full circle of an expanse of things that you've done over your career, but you end up in the place you started.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had started in a learning support role too.
Yeah. And then classroom teacher for a number of years, but eventually in a director role in inclusive ed. So,
well, and I mean, firsthand, obviously, even within your roles, that collaborative response fits so well when you're talking about building teacher capabilities and supporting complex needs within our schools. So, again, I can remember distinctly the summer that I received the first book from Rhonda Lang, Edmonton Catholic Schools, and I was on my summer vacation, and I read that book cover to cover 2 times, and I just could not wait to get started when I got back from summer that year. So.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. So Terri, tell us one thing that's really important for our listeners to know about your school division.
Oh, for sure. So Edmonton Catholic is the 4th largest metro in Edmonton, and our current student population is just over 51,000 students. Mm-hmm. As with many metros within our province, a very diverse student population, lots of English as additional language students, complex student needs, typically developing students as well. And we offer a variety of language programs in our division. So we have a lot of things going on in Edmonton Catholic to serve a variety of student needs and passions and pathways.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a few things to keep you busy.
So, Terri, I remember us having some of those first conversations around collaborative response, and you mentioned the first book, and a lot of the thinking has evolved and continued to grow as we went through. I also know your superintendent, Lynette, also was a principal that was living this work in their school. So I'm really interested in what initially brought you to thinking about this work from a system perspective when you came into this role. And again, I know that there were many conversations happening at the senior leadership table around why would we want to be thinking about how we collaboratively respond. What kind of led you to those first ahas? Why wouldn't we be doing this across our system?
Well, I think initially I draw on my own personal experience as a site-based leader at John Paul I in Edmonton here. And for me, collaborative response is about honoring collective wisdom, expertise that exists in many forms in any school division, and especially a large metro and within our schools. So in my role as a principal, I had witnessed how powerful it is when we come together as educators to share strategies, support one another, and to build on successes for the benefit of our students. And so I guess I would say it's not just about coming to the table and solving problems. Mm-hmm. It's about building a culture, in my opinion, where everyone feels that they have ownership and responsibility for every learner within their building. With the fundamental belief as well that all students have the capacity to succeed and to learn, that we never let that piece of our core go when we're talking about supporting students. In my current role, system-wide or division level implementation honestly just simply made sense. We made reference earlier that we've been journeying together over the years. I think it's since 2019 approximately with collaborative response, and we've been elbow to elbow partners for a very long time. When I looked at the historical data that you shared with me in the spring, Kurtis, with Edmonton Catholic Schools, I would say I'm giving a rough estimate, but about 2/3 of our schools in some form have receive training in collaborative response. And these collaborative team meetings exist in our schools, but I would say with variability.
Yeah.
In practice, as happens over time, and as people change and move on, and so the high level of variability is one thing that brought me to the wondering about a system level approach, believing that all of our great work that we do is always iterative, and that's evidenced by our longstanding relationship and how things have changed in that. I thought that with a growth mindset, recognizing the opportunity to build on what we started several years ago.
Yeah.
So as I embarked on my journey as a superintendent of learning services just 2 years ago, so I would say I still consider myself relatively new. It's been a steep learning curve. I was faced with the nagging concern, in all honesty, through multiple conversations with principals and teachers and consultants across the division about teachers' sense of efficacy. And they were facing and are continuing to face very complex classrooms. Classroom profiles have shifted dramatically. And how do we ensure teacher efficacy, that understanding and that belief and that in your core that I can make a difference? And I truly believe that collaborative response is one of the solutions to teacher efficacy. Of course, at the heart of that, as I've already said, is the ultimate objective being student excellence and well-being.
Yeah.
So then the obvious question to me was, how can we ensure, as I said, we've been journeying for years, how can we ensure fidelity to the process?
Yeah.
Because as you know, we hear, well, I do collaborative response-ish sometimes, right? In our conversations with our friends. And so how do we ensure fidelity to the process? And then therefore providing clarity and efficiency in serving our staff and our students in every school in Edmonton Catholic Schools.
Well, and Terri, I also remember the reality that we were having at that table, and I felt privileged and honored to be part of that conversation of, we have a lot of referrals that are coming in, and in a sense, the amazing work that your school division has done through the multidisciplinary team approach actually has hindered some of the teacher, as you say, efficacy, or the feeling that I can impact what I'm seeing, because you had shared, and the system was sharing, that it was far too easy for someone to just cry help.
Yeah.
And someone with a high level of expertise would arrive, but that's a pretty expensive response.
And having that level of expertise, of course, people are going to reach out for that because it's there and available.
Absolutely. And then as always, we consider, is that a sustainable approach?
Right.
Yeah.
How do we leverage the expertise of all the members of our school communities to better support teaching and learning? And I guess for me, my legacy, I hope, would be in the division to have a culture, a way of doing things, that this is how we do it, business in Edmonton Catholic Schools, that sustains the test of time, that it doesn't collapse once somebody leaves or moves on, whether it's in a role at the district level or within a school site. And just building that real strong foundation that has the common language, the common structure that stands the test of time.
So let's talk. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, and I see collaborative responses filling that need.
So Terri, with that idea of sustainability, we know that in a system your size, with the complexities that you have, just saying we're all going to learn about collaborative response this year and then we should be good does not lead to sustainability. This is complex work when we put it all together, and especially across many levels within your system. So can you share out What have been some of the things Edmonton Catholic have done explicitly to ensure that long-term sustainability, that is building capacity within the system and not just we did 3 days of training and 3 years later, who knows where that went?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because, when we look at the long-term relationship and that we've had, and whether it is sticking or whether it is being used consistently, for example, what came to mind in my conversations, particularly with Lynette, our chief superintendent, is we need to approach this in all layers of Edmonton Catholic Schools. And we need to start with our senior leadership team. So our superintendents, our CFO, our legal counsel, we all come together weekly. And it was really important to establish the how and the why of collaborative response with that team and then build it out from there. So, Kurtis, you journeyed with us in those early days around this time last year, where there was a lot of learning because, as I said, there's teachers as part of our executive leadership team and our legal counsel. And so it was a really interesting and I would say rewarding experience to bring this to that table. Because then what started to evolve is, when we have our weekly meetings, what are some key issues at the division level that we could have a collaborative team meeting about? Is there something that we can, so it just, I guess for me, what is important to impart is that collaborative response is not just a school-based approach. This can be used in our division in all departments and at all levels. And that's my vision. And I know that within our senior team, that's what we talked about. So after we onboarded as essentially our senior team, then we established our collaborative team meetings with our stewardship groups, which, as you know, Kurtis, each superintendent has approximately 13 schools, which we call stewardship groups. And we thought, okay, we need to ensure that we are modeling what we expect. And as you know, what you put time into gains traction.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really fascinating experience from my perspective, given, the amount of time that I've worked with you, and then to see this at a whole different level in terms of division impact was quite remarkable.
So then when you look at the school side of things, do you want to speak to the phased approach, that it's not you get your 3 days of training? And again, for anyone that's listening to the audio, I'm air quoting here as we go. But with the idea that by phasing the support for our leaders, different place, we're actually getting to a place where we have built capacity within the system where now schools start leaning on other schools to learn and lead this work, not looking to external support necessarily.
100%. And again, when we sat down, we had the same vision. First of all, we are getting to the stage now where we have lead principals that are capable and are interested in supporting their principal colleagues in this journey. So as we onboard new assistant principals, new principals into their roles that have some experience or limited or none, we are building that division capacity to build this forward, which I think is the ultimate goal of ensuring sustainability, right?
Yeah.
In-house people to be able to do that. But leveraging the principal-to-principal relationship, as you know, is very unique. And it's a very trusting relationship. And so if you can learn from a principal colleague, and if we can facilitate that, I just think that will hit the mark, in my opinion, even stronger than we already are.
Yeah. And that over time and through the process of implementing collaborative response, you are building that culture of collaboration where you're almost creating a dependency on each other, which is a really wonderful thing. Yeah. That, you're not on your own, that we expect you to reach out to other people for that support.
100%. And I think the key ingredient, in my opinion, is understanding that people are entering at different levels.
Yeah.
There's different entry points, right? And as we've just talked about, and ensuring that your culture, whether it's division culture as a whole or within your school or within your principal cohort, your friend group, that it's a safe culture. That ability to be vulnerable with one another and knowing that, you can come to the table and say, I need help with a key issue or a problem of practice, and it's a safe space to be vulnerable. I think that can only be a positive culture within any system.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that implementation, Terri, what challenges have you encountered in implementing from that system level, and how have you worked to overcome some of those challenges?
We'll be right back to continue this episode. Have you ever wondered how to make your collaborative team meetings more productive, engaging, and impactful? We know that healthy, well-structured collaborative team meetings are the key to driving innovation and addressing student needs. But there is one essential ingredient that determines their success: effective facilitation. That's where our online course, Facilitating Effective Collaborative Team Meetings, comes in. Designed and facilitated by myself, Kurtis Hewson, author of Collaborative Response and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning, this course gives you the tools, strategies, and structures to transform your team meetings from routine discussions into powerful problem-solving sessions. In this course, you'll learn what makes a collaborative team meeting different from traditional student meetings, the structural components needed for effective collaboration, practical facilitation strategies to maximize your team's impact. And the best part, it's self-paced, takes about 3 hours to complete, and you'll receive a certificate of completion to recognize your learning. Consider enrolling yourself or members of your team responsible for facilitating collaborative team meetings. If you're ready to lead collaborative meetings that actually drive change, enroll now. Access the course at jigsawlearning.ca/publications/courses. That's jigsawlearning.ca/publications/courses. Let's make every meeting count. And now back to our conversation.
Well, again, I've spoken to the piece already about variability and wanting to ensure that we have some common understanding, the common understanding of why, the common understanding of how. Obviously, the support, the elbow to elbow support of both of you, being able to lean on you for that guidance has been of paramount importance in my mind. And of course, all the robust resources that you provide help to remove any barriers to implementation. I think one of the big things that we committed to that we know is a commodity that, besides money, it's the second most desired commodity in education is time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Lynette, our chief superintendent, was very committed when I proposed. Within Edmonton Catholic, I'll explain our PD structure. Every Thursday afternoon is an early dismissal day where, staff have staff meetings, we host professional learning. And the proposal that I put forward was that we dedicate one Thursday every month to whatever layer of the collaborative structure that you in your building need. And so we have blocked the third Thursday of every month off for collaborative response time.
So basically no system level PD on those dates. People have their people in their buildings.
Dedicated.
100%. It's a blackout in terms like I'm the teaching and learning department. So, it takes a Thursday afternoon away from my team in terms of the goals that we want to work on and move the division forward. But what it also does, it is allows our specialist consultants to be able to be part of those meetings. So if we're talking about how to look at math instruction and tier 1 and tier 2 strategies for math, we've got the math experts here that can now be part of your collaborative team meeting. But in terms of barriers or things to consider, I think time was one of the big pieces. Ensuring that what you value, you're going to give time to. And that was widely accepted at the senior table. And I think that's really what I see as a very instrumental piece to ensuring system implementation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that you're still working on through the draft with your schools and with your teams, but for a system your size to be able to come up with the team meeting overview that you're creating to say in Edmonton Catholic, here's what we call each of our layers. The expectation is we would see each of those layers in every school, but recognizing there's still flexibility within that. And then that visual, then connecting that these 4 layers of teams connect to 4 tiers in our continuum. And for people to get really crystal clear that we don't, in a collaborative team meeting, jump to looking for tier 4 external supports. There's alignment.
And that's where the clarity, right? That's critical, because there's so much diversity and understanding of what is PLC time, what is a collaborative team meeting, what is a case conference. And so that also, working with one of our retired principals who is equally passionate, if not more so, about collaborative response and has had much success in his many leadership experiences, Darren DeForge, working with him and leveraging his passion and his expertise and helping us systemize some of those things has been really valuable. We're very new and very early on in these stages, and the current context has put a bit of a pause on some of those things, but I know that we'll be flying very soon again.
There's a perfect example of the capacity getting built within the organization or the overall system. So then, what has been your experience, Terri, when you have leaders, and you have exceptional leaders throughout your system, when they're either hesitant of jumping into this collaborative response work, or actually, we already do this. It's kind of like this, but it's a little bit different. How do you go about supporting them to understand that we're trying to get some coherence across the system so that we don't say one thing and there's 18 different versions of what that one thing means?
I mean, that's a really critical piece. And I think it really comes down to ensuring that first and foremost, you have strong relationships with the people. You need to know the people in your organization. You need to take time to form those relationships and work from there. And really, if there's anything that's constant in education, it's change. And sometimes that becomes very overwhelming, depending on the rate of change. And so just really being an empathetic supporter in those conversations. Also ensuring that, as I said, we have multiple entry points. So where are you in the journey and how can we support? And, with that, based on those multiple entry points, we have different layers of support. We have the onboarding of new cohorts through Lorna and yourself. If it's a refresher, we have that capacity too. If you prefer to have a more intimate, personalized approach, then we have our lead principals. We have our, we're using Darren DeForge as well in terms of his expertise, and he's got incredible relationships with people in the division. And so and then we have our own team here in Learning Services, who's also been very well-versed in collaborative response. So I think
plus opportunities for schools to go and observe other schools as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that interchange or site observation for sure is critical. So you can see it in action. I think it's also important, and we witnessed it at the senior table. It's messy.
Yeah.
And it's
very.
It's not going to be slick. And I just think ensuring that people feel like they have a safety net cast around them in any type of change or any implementation project, I think is just critical.
Yeah.
Well, that idea of we're doing this together, it's not being done to you, is probably an important message from your desk out to schools.
100%. And I do think that our shift last year in the implementation divisionally, like it's really part of our principal culture now with our stewardship groups. We met 3 times last year. We did a major shift from a learning coach model to an instructional coach model. And we facilitated the implementation and the shift of that model through collaborative response so that we could be responsive to principal needs, principal questions, struggles, tensions. And they saw firsthand how effective those collaborative meetings were in terms of principal to principal supports. Hey, I tried this. But also in the division's responsiveness to what do we need to do next to support the implementation of instructional coaching. And it all came through collaborative response meetings. They're seeing firsthand the impact.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And that alignment that's happening, not just between schools, but across your whole district and across all departments, being able to see that alignment and the common focus of what you're trying to do through collaborative response. That's really amazing.
It's exciting. It's very exciting.
So, Terri, looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of collaborative response, both in your division and across Alberta? And what message would you share to other educational leaders about the power of collaboration in driving student success?
We'll be right back to continue this episode. The introduction and establishment of the collaborative team meeting is a vital first step in implementing collaborative response, but it takes some careful planning and consideration by leaders. When introducing it to the staff team, it's important for leaders to be intentional and focus on growing understanding of how it functions to place focus on classroom instructional practices and responsive supports. Join us for the online workshop, 4 Mistakes Leaders Make When Planning for Collaborative Team Meetings, part of our Supporting Collaborative Response series. In this on-demand workshop, I share 4 mistakes we often see leaders make when planning for their first collaborative team meetings, whether the structure is new to the school or being reintroduced for another school year. I also share numerous ideas, resources, templates, and samples to help leaders address these mistakes. Purchase the workshop, and you'll also have the ability to replay all or any portion of it as you wish. Register today to learn more about how to avoid these common leadership mistakes and how to set up your first collaborative team meetings for success. And now back to our conversation.
Well, well, that's a multi-pronged question.
It is.
So I'm going to tackle in the division first, because that's near and dear, obviously, and in the forefront of my thinking. In all honesty, I would, and I've referenced this earlier as well, I would love to, my vision is that collaborative response is just how we operate. This is how we do things in our division. There's, regardless of your context, if you're at your school site or whether you're coming together in some committee work with people from other departments, that this is how we do things in our division. So that's my pie in the sky for the division. I think within the department I work, the area that I would like to, or the direction I would like to see things go is we have curriculum consultants, we have managers of specialized supports, we have inclusive consultants, etc. And then we have these teams of consultants supporting schools. And where we need to go now is using collaborative response in those meetings with principals to determine how can we and learning services support your principal or your school, growth plan. Where can we come together as a team with all our expert knowledge and support the professional learning plan or the areas of growth within your school? So that is a year 2 in this. So that's this year for me. And then I would say across the province, I was thinking about this in terms of some committee work that I took part in this summer in the Student Aggression and Classroom Complexity Committee. We talked a lot about that in that committee about cross-ministry collaboration.
Yeah.
And immediately I thought, well, wouldn't this remove some of the barriers, those initial awkward moments, to be able to just jump into real heart of the matter conversations, cross-ministry, if a model collaborative response approach was adopted throughout the ministries. Jurisdictionally, I mean, I've thought about this question a lot, actually, because I think as we get into our schools and we see the complexities are increasing, there's no question that's happening across the province. I honestly have seen a marked shift in cross-jurisdiction collaboration. It's actually quite remarkable that you can actually see the shift. And I think that shift is coming because of the complexities and the understanding that, my goodness, there's lots of people out there in other divisions that have expert knowledge that needs to be shared, and vice versa. And so, I mean, again, if I had my way, I think this would be a really great approach to structure to approach those conversations cross-jurisdictionally. We can't work in silos anymore as divisions in our province. Things are moving so quickly and changing so quickly. And there are amazing conversations happening, but wouldn't this be a beautiful way to bring those conversations to a more efficient and effective outcome?
Well, it's interesting because when you think at a micro level, in a school, this is exactly why we want to establish our collaborative response. Is we don't want individual, we used to call them isolated islands of excellence. Great people doing great things, but with their door closed. No. We have so much expertise in this building. And now you're at a place of, wait a second, what if you opened up the doors to your school? There's so much expertise 4 blocks down the road in other schools. Why when you open, and now you're talking at more of a macro level of, okay, we need to open up the doors metaphorically to Edmonton Catholic to learn from other jurisdictions. That you're right. It all comes down to the premise that your key issues that you're experiencing, whether it's in the classroom, at your school site, at your divisional site, or provincially, somebody else also has those, or somebody else has accomplished or knows of a way to address those.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much potential, right? In terms of the expansion of these collaborative meetings in other settings. And I think that's what I or when I began my journey, that's what I saw right away. Why are we not having our meetings, our critical conversations using this structure within Edmonton Catholic? But for sure, I mean, our province is opening their arms in other jurisdictions so widely. And I think this approach would definitely support those conversations, as I said.
So, Terri, we always have 2 questions that we love to ask on this podcast of leaders that are coming in to share their expertise. The first one is asking you, how would you finish this statement? As a result of collaborative response, we have seen.
We have seen people lower their shoulders, principals lower their shoulders, teachers lower their shoulders. consultants lower their shoulders because they see that they're not isolated, that it is a community of support, and we're here for the obviously the education and academic excellence and well-being of our students, and we're in this together. And so what I've seen through this is, yes, we talked about that, the hesitation that I don't know, I'm not confident, to the, oh, I've seen it in those rooms, Kurtis, with our stewardship groups. I had the pleasure of partaking in most of the other superintendents' team meetings as well. And just the shift from when we start to when they leave is quite remarkable. So I think it's lowering the shoulders. It's knowing that you're not in this alone. Mm-hmm. And hey, I've got 2 things that I can take back today and try immediately at my site.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I love that idea of, or that visual of a physical response to what's happening, creating that collaborative culture. That's incredible.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
So, Terri, the other question is in the spirit of, if you knew then what you know now, what advice would you give to your past self in relation to this collaborative response work?
If I knew then what I know now, I think that, in all honesty, I would have looked, as I moved into division office, I think I would have looked sooner at the different division levels and reframing this to begin with our superintendents, which then model to the principals, which then bring it back to their schools. I think that again, what you believe to be impactful, you have to practice yourself.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps we would have saved some time in terms of our implementation. But I also, every journey has a course, and what that is not always apparent to us in the moment. But certainly in my current role, I see that as just one of the biggest messages that I could give anybody that's looking at learning more about collaborative response, is really consider the division-wide implementation approach.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Terri. And we have loved this conversation, and we love working with you.
Oh, honestly, I was saying to Kurtis, I just feel like you're part of the ECSD family, and I know that is felt widely. We feel very supported, and I think the biggest thing for me is I can have safe, vulnerable conversations with the 2 experts, you 2, and we come out with a solution. Yeah. And so I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I just have so much gratitude in this month of gratitude.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, this has been such a great conversation, and we're just so thankful that you joined us today and shared your experience and your heart.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll encourage anyone that's listening or viewing, we'll include Terri's email address. If there's questions that you have, I'm sure Terri would have no problem being able to connect with anyone.
Anytime, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for this, Terri, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
Take care.
So we've known Terri for quite a long time, and actually from the role first at school and then into director and now superintendent, I've always admired the vision and the tenacity when it comes to actualization for Terri. And what I mean by that is being able to paint a vision, but then work alongside and, like she said, develop the relationships so that we can actualize this together and share it. But it came through loud and clear, and I know this has been the experience. Terri and I have had personal conversations around just the messy.
Yeah.
This work is so messy, and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Well, and a few times through that conversation, we kept talking about it's not enough to do 1 day of training, but we even avoid the word training because really that's not what this is. It is about being able to envision what some of the shifts will be within your culture or your building and your community, and how do you make those shifts work toward accomplishing that vision that Terri is so good at explaining that
Well, and
vision.
this is where you and I didn't understand this a number of years ago.
No.
We understood what would it look like at a school level if we could collaboratively
Yeah.
respond and set the structures and
Yeah.
processes, layers of meetings, tiers of support in our continuum, how we're bringing data and evidence in. But we've really seen phenomenal impact when we can start taking that conversation to a jurisdictional
Yeah.
level to
Yeah.
say, all right, how can we collaboratively respond system wide? And I loved her reference to having that senior leadership team understand, practice, and model so that it just cascades throughout the organization. And being around that table, it was very messy when we started with that senior
Yeah.
leadership team of trying to understand the foundational components and the establishment of a mindset, not just meetings that we do at schools.
Well, and actually, that messiness is necessary
Yeah.
when we think about really creating that ownership and having a solid understanding of what we're trying to accomplish through this work. It is all about how do we collaboratively respond to the needs of our students, to the needs of our teachers, to the needs of our schools.
So it's interesting. And I was at the table and helped to model some of the first stewardship groups. So really interesting. It was, as she mentioned, groups of 13-ish schools or principals that would come together with a superintendent who in time I helped to facilitate the first ones just to model, but then superintendents start to
Take over the
facilitate that.
facilitation.
But
Yeah.
I love this idea of let's apply the collaborative team meeting structure in other contexts. And
Yeah.
we've seen and heard this multiple
Yeah.
times now. But in those groups, she mentioned that they've been doing work around Jim Knight's work for instructional coaching and shifting away from learning coach to instructional coach, which was a mindset shift.
Yeah.
But they used the collaborative team meeting structure to address that. So they would come ready with celebrations that they're seeing in their building around instructional coaching. And then they would ask why. Why are you seeing that celebration? What do you think you've done that's led to that? And then what they did is they solicited feedback from the principals around what are issues that they're seeing in implementing, making that shift to instructional coaching and really robust instructional coaching. And they would curate that, bring it back, and then say, all right, in this stewardship group, we have two key issues that we're going to look at based on the responses that came from you. So one might be the key issue of finding time for the instructional coach to be in classrooms.
Yeah.
And then said, all right, who's struggling with this and name, and then what could we do?
What could we
And
do?
what could principal, what are you doing in your school that's working for this? So really, it was so fascinating as people would be sharing, and even though one person's taking notes, everyone was just jotting down different ideas.
Yeah.
You could see almost the visual, I'm going to connect with you right after this meeting.
Yeah.
Like the cross networking that was happening through that. And then every person being able to say, okay, here's what I commit to try back in my building. And then their superintendents in their school visits could follow up on that. A really robust way to be able to, again, model and practice something that then you go and model and practice that with your own staff.
Which really just accessing the wisdom in the room and ensuring that we have some structure around that to create that level of accountability to each other and to ensure that the supports that we've discussed, we actually walk away with and we do, which is amazing.
Well, and she mentioned the lowering of the shoulders. I saw that with my own eyes in those conversations of people that can feel really overwhelmed with the shifts that are happening. And I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the things that are going on within our organizations, but to lower shoulders and hear other people are also struggling with this, but then to also see some nuggets of ideas and wisdom, and that's something that I could take back to my own site.
Well, and that learning and that time that Terri talked about too, that time is such a concern in education and in schools, that time is well valued, and that people walk away with such a great relief of knowing that there are other people experiencing common issues, that I'm not the only one, and that I know this is a trusted group that I can come to and bring forward a concern that we can all add ideas to and help each other through that process. But, the other thing that Terri talked about, and that this really is about that 10,000-foot view of how position or how systems work, is really thinking about, how do we use that same process, which is really quite a simple process, like Kurtis just shared, but how do we use that same process when we're already doing it, when we support students, and we are already working with a number of divisions who are using that same process to support schools. But then, how do schools support schools, and how do we have districts supporting each other through that same way, and even more ministries? How do we get to that bigger picture of, providing that same structure of support between ministries with the intention of providing what's best for students and for families?
100%. Whew, some big picture thinking to put out there. So once again, we'd love to thank Terri Peterson for joining us on the podcast, sharing expertise, experience. Make sure to check out the notes. I know Terri would welcome a email if you'd like to engage in a further conversation about the great work happening at Edmonton Catholic Schools. So as always, we have a couple of requests. First, join or share our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. We send out weekly content and other resources that we know you'll find valuable. Second, please like, share, review, or subscribe. However you're engaging with this podcast, it just helps to continue to grow that audience and increase the likelihood that someone who needs to hear some of the messages that come from our incredible guests are able to access those. And finally, reach out to us at questions@Jigsaw Learning. If you have a question, a future topic to discuss, or if you'd just like to connect, we'd love to hear from you. So wishing you all the best as you continue to lead collaborative response in your own organization.
See you soon.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.